Okay, hello people of YouTube land, and those that are part of the Cringe Crew Gaming Discord, and those that follow Ted Green Eagles and I, Traductus, on Twitch. As I said before, I am Traductus.
And I'm Ted.
And this is the Bond, a movie podcast by Cringe Crew Gaming. And today we are reviewing The Spy Who Loved Me, the 10th Bond movie, and just to catch up for those that probably are seeing this for the first time and not the other films. I mean, not really films, I mean reviews. Already scuffing this already. Yay! But this whole entire podcast is to expose a newbie, such as Ted here, to the James Bond films, and then hearing their opinion from each, for each film, and, comparing them to me, a James Bond fan. And we're going to see how that, like I said before, how that compares and how it differs. So we're going to start this off with typically what we do is a overview of the film, like, how it got made, then likes, dislikes, overall thoughts, and then we rank it. All right, so like I said before, this one's The Spy Who Loved Me, and this was released in 1977, so I wasn't sure if this was a mid-70s or a late 70s film. This would 77, late 70s?
Yeah, I guess it's the back half, so mid to late.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, mid to late, yeah. And this was basically chosen to be the Bond film because they were influenced by a blockbuster movie that was being made, and they knew that it was going to be a big film, and that was Jaws. And they figured, well, out of the even though they were going to dive into the short stories, they kind of wanted to get like most of the novels, done first. And they figured, well, Moonraker doesn't sound like that should be underwater, so they went with The Spy Who Loved Me. And it also didn't help that they couldn't use the plot of the book because, they could, but Ian Fleming really didn't like his book, The Spy Who Loved Me, and asked, before he passed away, if you guys were going to make Spy Who Loved Me, to not use the plot of the book and just use the name, and that's about it. Although they did pull a henchman that we will get to later that's from that book, although he has a different name in the movie. But yeah, they decided to do Spy Who Loved Me, and they were going to bring in Steven Spielberg for this. He turned it down, and or was unavailable. I couldn't really. They were unable to get him somehow, and then they asked Guy Hamilton, who directed Goldfinger, Live and Let Die, Diamonds Are Forever, and The Man with the Golden Gun. Guy Hamilton turned them down because he was asked to direct Superman, which he, funnily enough, didn't get to direct. So
unfortunate.
They ended up bringing in Lewis Gilbert, who directed You Only Live Twice, and we are going to compare this to You Only Live Twice, because this is essentially You Only Live Twice underwater.
Not far off.
So much so that the villain was originally supposed to be Ernst Stavro Blofeld, but Kevin McClory caught wind of that and was like, yeah, not happening. I own the rights to Blofeld because of the whole Thunderball lawsuit and everything. And he was dead determined on making his version of Thunderball. Yeah. Which he would do in the early 80s with Never Say Never Again, and we will get to that when we get to that. So instead, we get this guy called Carl Stromberg.
Quick interjection. Quick interjection there too is that we talked about the Blofeld and the lawsuit in previous episodes as well. So you can go check more explanation rather than us getting into depth like a third or fourth time. Especially in the Thunderball episode, I think that's the one where we really touch it because that was, the book and movie that basically started the whole damn thing.
Um. So, anyway, they had to rewrite the entire script because apparently they had the script finished, and then Kevin McClory's just like, "Yeah, fuck you." So they had to pretty much rewrite the thing, and they brought in writer Christopher Wood to help out with that. As for casting, we have Roger Moore back again, of course, and Lewis Gilbert actually worked a lot with Roger Moore in this film, so much so that he actually went up to him and he goes, "Hey, I know what's kind of like weird about like your previous outings as Bond is that there's like a lot of like Connery leftovers because they kind of wanted him to be kind of rough like Connery, while Roger Moore kind of was like uncomfortable doing that. An example of that would be like the scene in The Man with the Golden Gun where he's slapping Maud Adams' character in that movie. He was very uncomfortable doing that, and not to saying that Bond doesn't get dark in this film. There's a couple occasions where he is, but Lewis Gilbert's just like, hey, don't be like Sean Connery. Like, just play Bond how you would like to play him. And that's why a lot of people consider this the one where Roger Moore really perfects being Bond. Like, this is the birth of Roger Moore's James Bond, although I dispute that. I think he's Roger Moore's James Bond right from Live and Let Die, but we can get into that later.
Sure.
For the hold on, let me go to cast here. For the character of the KGB agent that would be the Bond woman in this film, Anya Amasova, is played by Barbara Bach, and I'm gonna look at, and I forgot to look this up and see if she was. Yes, she is married to the drummer of the Beatles, Ringo Starr. Still married. I just had to look that up because I remembered. Oh, right, I wanted to make a mention of that.
You were even scuffed with notes. Yeah, wouldn't be us if we were scuffed.
Oh yeah, definitely. Okay, and then Kurt Jungens as Carl Stromberg, the main villain, and oddly enough, we're gonna have like a well, not oddly enough, but we're gonna have another iconic henchman here by the name of Jaws. In the book, the character's name is Saul Horror. But, you know, to go with the movie Jaws, they actually had a character named Jaws who has, you know, metal teeth. Played by Richard Keel. Most people would probably know Richard Keel as, in the movie Happy Gilmore, he, I can't remember what the hell the character's name is, but I know that he is, I think Happy Gilmore's boss in that film, if I remember correctly. I know he's the tall dude with the nail in his head.
That feels right.
Most people nowadays would know him from that. I'm not sure if he's best known as Jaws from the James Bond movies, but I'm not entirely sure if this was his breakout role, because he has a couple other roles that are somewhat iconic. I'm not sure if the original version of The Longest Yard was before this, but he plays Samson in that, and he also plays a space alien in an episode of The Twilight Zone, which is, I think it's called To Serve Man. So, obviously, you know, acting experience, this wasn't his first movie. And during production, he actually enjoyed his role as Jaws, but there was a drawback. The metal, like, retainers, I guess? The metal, like, teeth pieces that he had to wear were painful to wear, that he only had to wear them, like, 5 minutes at a time. And he said that his mouth tasted like straight up metal. Yeah. For, like, because, like, they were actually made out of metal.
Tastes like aluminum foil.
So, he said that was, like, the most uncomfortable thing about that. Also, brought back from Russia with Love is Walter Guttelle, who plays General Gogol in this film. In From Russia with Love, he played the head of Spectre's like assassin training camp, and later on gets blown up in the boat chase. They actually, brought him back and recast him as another person, and he would be playing General Gogol from this film, Clear to The Living Daylights. So we're going to be seeing a lot more of Walter Guttelle and the character of General Gogol. And needless to say, even more, this was a box office smash. This took like $13.5 million to make and made $185.4 million. And this was good because the last film was like a financial disappointment, and they were kind of in a little bit of panic mode. They really put everything in the kitchen sink into this film to make sure it did well. And I would say yes, and to some points to its detriment, which we might which we'll get into with likes and dislikes. That being said, that's what I have right now for background, and I say let's get into likes and dislikes. So who wants to go first?
That's up to you, bud. I have a handful if you want me to go first.
Yeah, might as well get like the newbies likes first.
Okay. So I thought that the set design was really positive. There were a whole lot of points in time during the movie where I felt like there were really quality sets, not just, hey, 6 feet of space in front of the camera, but like they really designed a whole set around the movie.
Yeah, I also like to add, they tried building some of the sets, especially the oil tanker, that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
They tried fitting it. They tried building it inside the studio, but it proved to be too big, so that's actually 2 different sets.
Okay. I thought, all right, into like a little insight into some dislikes. I thought a lot of the camera work was shoddy, but I thought they did a very good job at shooting the sets that they designed. Even as the oil tanker was apparently 2 sets.
Yeah, you couldn't tell.
The office inside the submarine, like they did a very good job at giving you a scope of what the scene was supposed to look like, the whole setting of the movie, rather than just the characters and whatever was behind them. I thought they did a really good job with set design. I also really appreciated the fact that Bond felt human in this movie. I know in times past, like I've complained in previous episodes about how, the villain has always let Bond get away, and it just kind of feels like he's just destined to live forever. But they did a lot of things to attack is the wrong word here, but to like come at his personality, to come at his past, to like really make him feel like a human character who was doing an above human thing, which I thought was pretty cool. And I know I have to mention cinematography every time, but I thought that the way they used different sets, like put the different scenes of the movie in different places, I thought was very positive. I thought it felt like a more whole and complete movie than ones have in the past because of the way they were able to integrate scenes across multiple places rather than everything we need from this is shot in one place.
Yeah, I'd agree, especially like a lot of scenes are beautifully shot. I will say like some of the rear projections actually not too bad, especially like in Stromberg's base, where the what I thought was like a cool detail was like they actually had like showed like the, even though like the effect is dated by today's standard, it's not like dated where it looks terrible. Yeah, but I thought it was really cool how like they showed like the water rising on like with like the windows or the water like lowering.
Yeah, for the most part, I thought that was pretty good. There were a couple of spots that it was like, ooh, that looked kind of rough because it was a very quick camera shot, and they didn't feel the need to do it for a half-second shot. But I mean, for the most part, I thought like the effects and the way that they used the scenery was pretty cool.
Yeah. And I think when it comes to Bond being human, it helps that for the most part he has a uh, Bond woman that's basically like his equal, more or less, because like she works for the KGB. She's essentially like a female Russian James Bond, and I do like there's that dynamic at first where uh they have that rivalry, and then the rivalry gets more intense. Although we'll go into negatives how that ends up, but uh I think with her like one upping Bond every now and then really adds to like the human aspect of Bond, and it also helps that you have a giant fucking henchman that's virtually indestructible with Jaws.
Certainly
um,
helps. Certainly
so
helps.
therefore, there's numerous times where Bond, you pretty much are like, shit, how's he getting out of this? And then manages to, but a lot of cases it's like sheer dumb luck. um, but I guess with me with likes, I do like some of like the character in this movie. Like I like Anya. I like Jaws definitely. Jaws is probably the next to maybe Oddjob is probably the most well-known henchman out of the James Bond series, probably because spoiler alert, Jaws is in 2 movies. He's in this one and the next one, and was originally supposed to die in this one and get eaten by the shark, but and but Cubby Broccoli was talked out of the producer was talked out of actually like having Jaws get killed, because while they were writing the script and filming it, they're just like, audiences are gonna really like this character, so like maybe we shouldn't kill him off by having him getting eaten by the shark. And then Cubby Broccoli's like, well then what the hell do we do? He's in the shark tank. Like what else is there to do? And then I guess one of the writers, I think it was like either Richard Maybaum. I know Tom Mankiewicz worked on this uncredited. I'm not sure if it was him or it could have been the new guy that they brought in, but they suggested the only thing that there is to do, he eats the shark. So they have him eat the shark, and then when you see him alive at the end swimming away, apparently audiences like cheered. Like they just went like, yeah, which is a similar situation to like what I saw Hostel in the theaters when the bad guys in Hostel end up getting killed off. So that's how I kind of picture it, just like basically the whole theater going nuts and just cheering on. Another thing, let's see here. I like how even though like this does borrow heavily from You Only Live Twice, I like that it's better than You Only Live Twice. Like it's when you have like Guy Hamilton when he made like Goldfinger, and then the second movie that he made was Diamonds Are Forever, there was kind of like a little bit of like, I guess director's rust, like because like Diamonds Are Forever was a really lazily and poorly made film, while this one was obviously like a vast improvement with the previous one. I'm glad that Lewis Gilbert didn't make the same mistake that Guy Hamilton did and really set upon to improve upon like the previous film that he made. Let's see. We already went over the cinematography. The cinematography is really nice. The sets, honestly, kind of do give like that sense of immersion. Like they're not, you're not looking at like, wow, that's totally a set. You actually kind of feel like you're in the places that you're in.
As well as you could for the late 70s. There were a handful of points. The one scene that I noted like as we were watching was the office in the submarine. And I was, I mentioned that it was a nice set, that they put a whole lot of detail all over the place. But it did definitely feel like a set for certain shots. it's pretty good for being the late 70s. Like I will give it that the sets were fantastic. The immersion through most of the film was pretty good.
Yes. Oh, and I also would like to add, because I forgot to add this on the overview, because Ted asked me while we were watching this movie, it's like, previously they tried to avoid, like, having, like, the Russia conflict in this film. And by the way, the Russians aren't the villains in this movie.
Most conflicts, to be honest. I mean, even they avoided Haiti in the last film, even though it was based on Haiti, because they didn't want to piss off a dictator.
Well, what happened was, in this, is that Cubby Broccoli showed a previous Bond film to, like, a few people that were Russian. And then they actually enjoyed the movie, but they said they could never watch it at home because it was too vehemently anti-Russian. So they decided to have, like, Russian characters in this movie that weren't the bad guys, so to speak. They weren't necessarily, like, on the same team as the British, but they end up being on the same team because they both have a common enemy and they work together towards that goal. So essentially, they brought them in so that way there would be a little bit more positive outlook on the Russian characters, so that way it could be marketed in Russia. If that makes sense.
No, that does check out. I thought it was weird that it felt like they avoided certain things for so long just to be able to sell to a global audience, and that this one there were lots of Soviet symbols, lots of Russian influence. There was much more Cold War involved in this one than many other places. So I just found it interesting, but it does make sense.
Which I do have to say, the spy work in this is actually pretty damn good as well.
I mean, we've had notably better movies as far as that goes, but it's genuinely not bad.
It's not terrible. We've seen more terrible things with the spy elements, but with this, it's it's good. That being said, I guess we'll go to dislikes. I will say this, although I don't really mind it, this movie is silly at points. It does kind of go a little overboard with the suspense of disbelief, because there's a lot of, like, unnecessary stuff in it.
I'd agree with that.
The ending does drag a little bit, although I will say, to this movie's credit, the majority of the film doesn't drag. They just, like, hop you right into plot right away, which Ted mentioned while we were talking about it while watching the movie. Definitely a huge improvement from the last one.
Yeah, I mean, I get, like, everything that happened in this movie was focused towards the plot. It just felt like the plot was uninvolved. The end dragged a lot. I mean, that was one of my major notes, was that they, again, created a very big ending for a very small plot. But my big complaint from the movie was mostly that the plot just felt like there wasn't a whole lot of meat to it. I mean...
Yeah, it is bare bones and very formulaic, and it kind of... I don't want to say the movie is, like painfully boring, but, like, kind of sort of is a little boring.
Yeah, I mean, I've had other movies, like, especially towards the earlier stages of Connery, where, like, I had to play a game or something to occupy my time while watching the movie. Like, this one, like, the past couple have genuinely caught my attention. Even the ones in the past 3 or 4 that I haven't enjoyed as an overall whole, like, they were still engaging enough that I wanted to watch the movie. This one, like, I was very tempted to just, okay, I feel like I've got it and don't need to do anything else. And it was... Dragging isn't quite the right word, because it's not like they took things and stretched them out. It was just not enthusiastic or engaging. Was the bigger deal. And again, I mean, we've talked about it with different directors, but this one, we talked at the end of the last one that like the director had created several movies where it was save the budget for the end, all of a sudden the end happens, and then let's make everything blow up. And this kind of felt similar in the way that it was a whole lot of nothing was happening during the movie, and then all of a sudden the ending comes around and let's create big explosions and action and drama, and I don't know. You said it was formulaic, and it's hard to disagree with that, but it's not like quite the same formula. It was just like a whole lot of nothing until the end, and then let's make a big 40-minute action sequence.
Well, yeah, true. But I meant like the stereotypical cliches of like the Bond. I bet the Bond villain could like literally have killed James Bond, especially like when James Bond like meets the villain, and then the villain gives him an opportunity to go back, on land. And then tells his lackeys to kill him while they go on land, even though like in a previous scene, like he kills like two people that he like owed money to, like as soon as they left. It's not even before they got off of land.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's just like, why couldn't you have done that beforehand? Like, it kind of just doesn't really add up on that. It definitely gives the cliche of like, numerous. You give Bond every opportunity to escape, as opposed to,
yeah,
like,
there's no urgency to kill. They have to create Bond into sport, and Bond gets away with it every time. We talked about it during the movie that probably 7 out of the 10 movies, at the very least, like the villain says, "Hey, I have every ability to kill you, and I'm not. You can get away now," and then come back and sneakily trick me into getting away with it.
And with this, it's like, this is even like the most egregious, I think, because like in other cases, such as, I mean, even in Goldfinger, like Bond has to talk his way out of like being killed numerous times, and like hell, even like Live and Let Die, like it takes a while for the villain there to actually get to that stereotypical Bond villain of like, I'm just gonna kill you in this like ludicrous fashion that you're going to totally escape from.
Right. I mean, Live and Let Die is probably the most egregious, just because it was also corny on top of it. But I mean, even the last one with the duel, I mean, at any point in time during those 10 paces, the best shooter in the world could have just turned around, blasted his brains out, and giggled. You know what I mean? He agrees to the duel, turn his back on the villain, but he has to create this fun house that he's also conveniently left this hole in the door. There's so many absolutely ridiculous moments where the villain should have every opportunity to stop Bond and just, hey, let me see how many ways I can give you to get away with this. And this definitely fit that stereotype.
Yeah. Another thing that because there's 2 things that irk me about this film. And to go with that, the villain himself is, there's really not much to him at all. Like, I mean, a lot of people give like Largo shit about being a boring Bond villain, but at least the eye patch makes him look at least sinister, and actually makes like his acting like look a lot more sinister, and at least he actually does shit.
Yeah. Like,
Stromberg just sits around and presses buttons on his little fucking like, he's literally like Blofeld in You Only Live Twice, without like any sorts of creepiness or like charisma or anything. Like, he's just like, I have webbed hands.
Yeah,
I like the sea. You should really, really like the sea. Everybody should live under the sea. I'm gonna kill everyone who doesn't want to live under the sea. Wham! 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 That's literally him in the nutshell. He is literally Sebastian the Crab.
That was the most abrasive noise I've ever heard.
I'm sorry, but it frustrates me for how boring he is, and the fact that his villain plot is also stupid. Usually, the Bond movies go either way. Either the villain plot is like completely stupid, and like the villains are like extremely like, over the top, which makes it match, or like if the Bond villain's like more subtle, like the plan is like very realistic and actually quite fucking genius. But in this, it's like you take the boring villain and you put him with a stupid fucking plan, and it's like,
To extend that a little further, I thought a lot of characters in this were underdeveloped. I mean, obviously the villain is pretty egregious, But even the female spy's name, I forgot. I'm blanking.
Anya.
Anya, thank you.
She is a little bit underdeveloped.
I thought she was a good character, but I think that their ability to develop the character into who you've met is just not great. She knows all of these things, and she's great at espionage, but you never get any insight. It's just she knows things, and it feels like they didn't put a whole lot of effort into letting you learn who the characters are.
And even then, spoiler alert, at the beginning of the movie, Bond kills her lover. And then she finds out about it in the middle of the film, which increases tension between them two. And she says, after this mission's done, I'm going to kill you. And, when the mission's done, after fucking Stromberg gets, the worst fucking villain death, which irks the shit out of me. Bond, it doesn't matter. Sorry I'm getting into this rant again, but, I'm going off on a tangent here. It does. I think the whole him shooting the spear gun that explodes at Bond is really cool. But then Bond has to put his gun in the little tube thing and gives Stromberg all the opportunity to, get up off of his fucking chair and run. Even when Bond's shooting him, there's numerous times where, he could oh shit, I'm being shot. I should probably get the hell out of here. But no, he just sits there and just goes and dies.
Yeah, it's up there as far as bad ones go. You have any other dislikes before I run into the rest of this?
The Anya thing. And then she says they escape the exploding base after Stromberg, gets offed, and she then points a gun at Bond because she goes, the mission's over. And then Bond more or less charms his way out of getting killed. And it's now, granted, there is parts in the film where they kind of there is subtle hints where they kind of are sort of falling for each other and stuff, but it's not developed enough to really warrant him charming his way out of getting fucking just murdered by this woman who's pissed off that he killed her lover.
Any of the charming was weak, to be honest. I mean, we mentioned it mid-movie long before that scene too, that just there was no reason for her to be into him in that fashion. The whole development of the relationship between the two characters sucked.
Yeah, I'd say that. Literally, if they, I mean, granted, it probably, I guess, the charming at the end would not make a whole lot of sense if they just had them as I guess partners in crime in this,
right?
For lack of a better thing. But because to be honest, them developing a friendship isn't so far fetched as them being lovers as far fetched.
I agree.
Because they definitely have mutual respect for each other. But it's just not really that developed, and this movie unfortunately suffers for that. Although I do like the line at the end with the defense secretary it's Bond, what are you doing? And he goes, keeping the British end up, sir.
Yeah.
I do like that joke. As ridiculous as that is, and how it's part of the whole thing why I don't really like this movie as much as others within the Bond catalog, but more or less, I will say that despite some of the discrepancies I have, they don't make the film unwatchable.
That's fair. I guess the rest of the dislikes I have then include cinematography stuff. I mean, I know we overlapped in a lot of places. I mentioned the scenery and the immersion of the cameras earlier. We both talked about it a little, but I think there was a whole lot of camera work that was just bad.
Yeah, And also, like, some of the stock footage, I think it was pretty bad as well, especially with, like, the nuclear bombs going off.
There were so many...
I think a lot of that is kind of like with previous ones. They just don't... I don't know if it's better, like, on film and, like, with, like, HD or something like that is what makes it, like, kind of, like, a little washed out. Or if they just... Or if they don't use, like, the right, I guess... I don't know what it actually is, but I'm just going to say aspect ratio, but it's kind of like, or it's kind of like they're putting, like, 280p video quality over, like, a 1080p video.
Yeah, I mean, even the special effects aside, because they didn't bother me as bad as they could have. I mean, there were just so many points in the movie where, like, the camera shook or just took a bad angle or the actors were out of frame or like, the camera work itself was really piss poor. I want to give credit and say that, like, it's because they were trying to show off the sets that were so thoroughly developed, but it was notable how bad the camera work was. I also thought that there was, on top of the, like, bad camera angles, I thought there was a lot of unnecessary action. There were a lot of points in the movie where action was just kind of interjected into a weak plot so that you could say something was happening, and it wasn't. Even the skiing scene at the beginning, like, obviously him killing, you know, Anya's significant other was important to the plot, but I felt like the way in which they did it, terrible camera angles, terrible scenery, just to ski down a hill.
A blink. It was like a blink and you missed it because, like, Ted's just like, I know that they implied that, you know, he killed him, but, like, you know, it would have been nice if we saw. I'm like, oh, we did see that, Ted. It's like, really? It's like, yeah, he got shot with, like, the ski pole gun. He goes, oh, that was him. It's like, yeah. Like, because you don't really get. There's not much of an establishing shot of him. I mean, there is an establishing shot of him, like, with Anya, but there isn't really a shot of him while in the ski thing that's, like, more than, like, 2 seconds. Like, it's just like it's hard to pick him out.
Right. And the, like, the shaky camera angles and the fast, like, rapid changes and jump cuts between them, it just made so many parts of this movie so hard to follow.
And on top of that, I fucking forgot about this, but when you mentioned the beginning, it reminded me of it. The fucking song. Ugh. Alright, spoiler alert. I don't like any of the Bond ballads with the exception of From Russia with Love. And the reason why it works with From Russia with Love, it's at the end of the movie. Of course, it's at the end of the movie on this one, but it's like fucking, like, 60s, like, rock comedy, you know.
And the end of the movie was also 45 minutes long, so it felt really drug out. Like, it just...
And... But, oh my god, the fucking song... Alright, you have a really cool stunt with him jumping off the cliff with the skis, and then he puts the parachute on, and then you have, like, the British flag, which is on the nose, but hey, you know, hey, that's cool. And then they kill it with, nobody does it better. It's like... This is also the first Bond film since probably Dr. No, because that's the James Bond theme for the theme, that this isn't named the same. This isn't named Spy Who Loved Me. The theme's actually called Nobody Does It Better. But
you mentioned the sound there. I had a couple of comments about it.
Shit! Yeah, the sound.
I complained in the last couple of movies that there were just a whole lot of bits of silence. That there were certain points of the movie that felt awkward because there was no backing to it. This movie improved with adding backing, but almost all of the sound selections they chose were not fitting to the scene. They were very out of place. It was like they were adding, like, okay, it's in the 70s, so let's put 70s stuff in it. Yeah.
Or they just use stereotypical, like, Hollywood, like, instrumental stuff. I mean, it worked with, like, in Stromberg's Lair, because, you know, you could just picture him just being maniacal and listening to classical music while his underwater base rises up and down out of the water. But, like, during the fucking... but hearing, like, classical music during the submarine battle is... just kind of out of place. You figure they'd actually have the James Bond theme in that part, you know?
And two, it was also strange some of the selections they made. Like there were points in times where you just wanted like a sound that creates tension and they gave you a ballad. There were times you wanted to build suspense and it gives you something to calm you while the suspense is happening. There were just the selection of sounds was weird. I'm happy they filled the void. Like it feels like a step in a positive direction, but the choices they made were so dumb. Also with sound, before I get too far away, I was calling for like the deaths of family members of this Foley artist while we watched this movie. There were so many I know how sounds in movies work. You have to add sound to scenes because you can't put a boom mic in every square inch of I get it, okay? But when a body falls off and hits the floor from a 2-story height, and it sounds like a ream of paper that I can identify the individual sheets hitting the ground, somebody needs to get fired, man. There were so many sound effects that were just so poorly and lazily done. The Foley artist did such a piss poor job in this movie. And the more you looked for it, the first one that frustrates you, whenever it is, if you start paying attention to, well, I hope the Foley artist does better later, the worse and worse and worse it gets. Whatever makes you pay attention to it makes it so much worse. Like it just stacks on top of itself through the end of the movie. It was terrible.
Mine was basically when Bond knocks his tie off while he's interrogating the guy, and he slaps the tie, and then the guy, or does he kick the guy off the roof? I can't fucking remember. But the one of the few times where he's actually gritty in this film. But yeah, like the body falling down on the ground, like. Mm-hmm. That sound was bad.
It was. You could hear individual sheets of paper hitting the ground when it should have been a body. Like it was so poorly done with sound effects. I don't know how anybody who was involved with the production of this movie watching those sounds and going, "Yep, this sounds great. Put it out." It was so bad.
I have no idea, but it is what it is. Anyway, I guess we're going to do overall. Overall, this is definitely like a watchable Bond film. I can see why this is one of the ones that gets shown on TV a lot. Just because, like, this is basically kind of like, if you think of a Bond film, this is more or less kind of like, it checks all the boxes of what a Bond film probably should be, especially from, like, what people think of the Roger Moore era. Like, it's a little silly, but like it's not 100% completely stupid where it's unwatchable.
Yeah, fair.
But at the same time, like, to me, I think there's just so many other Bond films that are better than this, especially when we get later into this, that sometimes I wonder why this one gets played a lot, while something such as like Thunderball, or even like From Russia with Love, or better yet, On Her Majesty's Secret Service. In my case, I don't know how, because Ted's list is different.
I'm with you.
Why some of those films only get shown when there's like a Bond movie marathon, while this one just gets put on out of nowhere.
Yeah, I'm with you.
For
the most part, anyway.
But overall, I enjoyed the movie. Like, there's no way of like, it's like, would I rather watch other Bond films than this? Yes. Would I bitch about it if it was on? No, I'd actually watch it if it was on. And then end up making fun of the villain throughout the entire time, which I really struggled to do throughout this entire movie. And when I finally able to let loose, it was great. But I guess your end, Ted, your overall thoughts.
I really had a difficult time putting this one in the list. We talked before, like, am I allowed to create ties? I'm gonna put this one between The Man with the Golden Gun and Goldfinger.
Ooh, so that's number 6. Holy shit!
It is gonna be 6th. I didn't think that this movie was terrible. I just thought that there weren't a whole lot of upsides to make it worth watching. Sitting through it definitely, like, I didn't want to turn it off, right? Which puts it above a handful of the other movies that we have watched, but it also
Dinosaur Forever.
Yeah. But it also didn't entertain me, right? Like, I mean,
so what you're saying is that The Man with the Golden Gun fucked up so bad that it entertained you?
You know, like, The Man with the Golden Gun was... I had a lot of complaints about the way that the movie was produced, right? But at the end of the day, like, there wasn't a moment in time during that movie that I was like, this isn't entertaining. They created a lot of unnecessary entertainment because that's what they do. But, like, there was never a point in time where I was like, this is boring. This needs to get turned off. I don't know what the plot is. I don't know what the X, Y, and Z. Like, this one felt much more boring and dull and flat, and just, like, to cut it down, simply avoiding all other variables, I would rather watch that one again and not this one. And I think that's where I'm sticking at.
That's honestly understandable, and it's kind of the same reasons why I'm putting it below Live and Let Die. I'm putting it between Goldfinger and Live and Let Die, so this is my number 5. Just because, like, Live and Let Die is just a more entertaining movie. Despite its flaws, especially, like, even the stupid fucking villain death at the end, at least it's, like, not anticlimactic. It's climactic for the wrong reasons, but it's at least climactic.
That's fair. That's fair. It was hard for me. The difficulty with this one was not actually, like, putting it below The Man with the Golden Gun, although that wasn't an easy choice. I think the difficulty was putting it above Goldfinger. Goldfinger had a very established plot, which this one kind of felt like it didn't. The only thing is with Goldfinger is that I felt like they sabotaged their own plot with poor movie making, and this one felt like it was a quality enough movie to make it watchable despite a bad plot. I know that's a weird line in the sand.
They did, I did. While I was looking up, they had to, like I said, rewrite the script, and then they said, like, there was problem shooting. That probably had a lot to do with it, but, like...
Oh, I'm sure that contributed, yeah. It felt hard to get into this movie because the plot was so dull and thin. But
anyway, that was The Spy Who Loved Me, and, next week, we got a real treat for you. Unlike what the credits of this movie says, we are not watching For Your Eyes Only. We are watching Moonraker. And oh boy, Ted doesn't know a goddamn thing about this movie, and it's going to be glorious.
I really, really am. Anyway, standard wrap up is catch the future Bond movies with us in the Discord. That happens on Tuesdays, and the link to the Discord will be posted in the description here. You can also catch up with both of us individually through our Twitch streams. I'm at Ted Green Eagles, and Stallman's at Traductus.
I'm at Traductus.
Yep. Both will be linked again in the description. I don't think I've got a whole lot of anything else. You got anything left?
No, I don't. That is, besides, like, subscribe, hit the bell, and, please leave a comment, in the description. Please, do that as opposed to DMing one of us, so that way, it actually looks like we have engagement on the YouTube channel.
Little victories. Give us this one. All right, guys.
Please.
That's it for this week, and we'll see you next one.
Yep, bye.